Good?
Back at it.
What are you drinking?
That is a Spike energy drink.
Oh.
Did we just talk about caffeine?
I think we might have. But whatever, man. Whatever gets you through the podcast.
They won't see it, but this for us is post, coming back after the holiday. Getting up this morning was a little rough.
Right. It was a little rough for me, too. But we're up. We're at it. We are on podcast number 11. Fun fact.
I think we've done a lot more than that, haven't we?
Fun fact, this is a redo. Turns out that no matter how many of these you do, you still forget to do certain things, like plug the audio cable from the camera into the recorder. So finished this last week, went to edit it. No video, or no audio, so that was cool.
We've got it all memorized now.
We got it all memorized, so that's the cool part. But today, oh yes, introduction. Yes, welcome, guys, to the Silver Bullet Podcast. I am Colton. Zach, you
James
are
Ogle here.
James Ogle. I was told to start doing that a little bit. That way people know who the heck's talking.
Right.
I get it. That's cool. I'll learn that. I'll learn to do that a little bit better. We still just a bunch of country boys with a lot of fancy equipment in here, so we'll work on this kind of stuff. We are talking, for the second time, about supplements.
Somebody's getting after it out there.
Yeah, sounds like it. I think she's about done, though. So, we're talking supplements today. Supplement industry. Anything and everything supplements. Because I think that it's probably, I don't know, for the people that don't come to our facility, it's the most common question that I get asked through like text message or social media, or anybody that knew me back in high school or whatever. It's like, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And I'm here to tell you the supplement industry can be a little scary. It can be a little daunting.
Yeah.
Lots of magic pills for everything.
With what we do, I feel like personally, supplements are a very easy way you're going to fix it.
I'm going to turn your mic up a little bit. Keep going.
For like us to lose integrity, honestly, we have a few supplements that we believe in quite a bit.
That sounds better.
Yeah, you can't just push everything onto a person and then put the reasoning behind that it's going to be what allows them to see results.
Right, and there's a reason why. At least our supplement line is pretty. I don't want to say it's really not a focus of anything that we do. It's more of a last resort type scenario. And a lot of people might be scratching their heads, last resort, there's we can talk about our supplement line first and kind of why, but my idea with this topic or with this podcast today was to break down supplements in two categories. Mm-hmm. One being health and wellness, and the other one being physical performance. I do think a bulk majority of the ones that you need to take for performance kind of overlap, but I don't believe that a lot of the ones in the sports performance need to be taken for health and wellness.
Right.
And I think a lot of people get confused with that. So we're going to break them up into two categories, and we're really going to talk about ones that we think are very important to your well-being mm-hmm. or your ability to recover, perform, yada, yada. But we can go ahead and talk about our supplement line. Like, there are, obviously, the supplement industry is like a $22 billion industry. People are making supplements or a supplement for this, supplement for that. There's eventually going to, I always used to joke, there's going to be a pill that you can take that'll help you take more pills. Like, eventually, most people would rather have something like that rather than do a lot of the consistent work with food and everything. But we'll get into that in a second as well. We have our Nerds supplement line. Mm-hmm. And Nerds for us and what we do here at Reclaim is an acronym. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we created this acronym. We built it. Colton does not like the way that I sound right now.
I don't like the way I sound.
Nourishment, exercise, recovery, digestion, supplementation, and the reasoning behind that. One thing obviously lends itself to the other. We firmly believe that until you have all of those things, it's going to be very difficult for you to achieve optimal health, and more than likely also performance.
Agreed.
So our supplements that we put an emphasis on are things that an individual more than likely lacks, or that we just feel like they need to help them achieve better health. So we have whey protein, we have an omega-3, we have D3, which also has K2 in it, helps with absorption, and then we also carry a greens and then magnesium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and we'll end up talking about each of these kind of in their own right, but we don't carry fat burners.
No.
We don't carry raspberry ketones. We don't carry caffeine. We don't carry. We do drink it, yes, but we don't carry it. We don't carry a lot of things that people might, for a caffeine, abuse. But a lot of times people come in, they're looking for a specific thing. They're like, "Where's your pre-workout?" And it's like, well, maybe we need to ask the question, why do you need pre-workout? And then address that issue first, okay? Especially if you're somebody, like, if you have nothing in the realm of sports performance that you're trying to get a competitive edge on, like if you're just trying to get a competitive edge on yourself, like let's figure out why you can't sleep, rather than go find a crap ton of beta alanine and just get the ants crawling all over you and think that's going to fix all your problems.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that we don't carry, but those are the things that we 100% believe in, that we believe you should be taking in order to get to optimal health. These are things that can help. Okay, don't get me wrong. You can smash double cheeseburgers every day, take all of those things, and not see very much of anything happen. That's the whole reason why they are at the end of our acronym, the supplements. They're there to bridge the gap, so to speak, between your diet and what it may be lacking. But if you have a pothole versus the Grand Canyon, you can fill one of them with supplements, but you can't just put a huge Band-Aid over your horrible diet or your tendencies to grab food that are high in inflammation and expect fish oil to help it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just a big teaching tool that you need to have that educational process up front with a coach or somebody that kind of understands the supplement industry, because honestly, I see more people waste money and it just goes right through their urinary tract, right into the toilet.
For sure.
That sucks.
There's a lot of even companies out right now, and we've even, individuals have told us we should do this. And I'm not saying it doesn't work and that you shouldn't do it, but they'll say, you should include supplements in any kind of front end offer with a membership or whatever. And I'm like, for what we do, we really want to teach the individual why they would need the supplement in the first place. And again, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's build the foundation with proper food, proper movement, and then let's see where there might be some room for supplementation.
Yeah. It's an uphill battle too, because most people will be like, well, it's just too much work to fix all of the food, so let's just do the next best thing. But that's lazy in my mind. So let's go ahead and talk and jump into my first list here. And these are supplements that you guys want to consider when you're trying to, let's say you're somebody who's just trying to get back into this world, okay, and back into the fitness game, back into a healthy lifestyle. You want to make some changes. Like, what are some things that you should take into consideration? Obviously, you need to sleep well, you need to eat well, and you need to move often. Take care of those three things. Now you can listen to this podcast and apply some of the things that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Cover that first. Fish oil. You want to start with the first one? You want me to start with the first one?
Let's get into it. Omega-3s, fish oil, or any other source of being able to reduce inflammation. If we can't heal the body, the basis for any other supplements, and honestly, you coming in and continuing to do more and more work, resistance training, you're putting more obstacles in your way. If you're eating more foods or bringing on inflammation through other avenues, taking a simple supplement. There's other things other than our omega-3 or omega-3s in general that will help reduce that, but it's probably the most effective and cheapest supplement for reducing inflammation.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people need to know and understand that when you exercise, you're inducing inflammation. Okay, you're going to get a inflammation response. Mm-hmm. Inflammation is a good thing. You need inflammation to heal and to restructure and to rebuild. Where the problem lies is if you have an evacuation of inflammation issue, meaning you can't get the inflammation to go away. Mm-hmm. That's where we have problems, and that's often found in a lot of omega-9 heavy Americanized diets.
Yep.
You know what I mean? With the processed everything, And how do you know if something's processed? Well, just ask yourself, how many hands did it go through, or how many machines did it go through before it ended up in your stomach? You know what I mean? So inflammation battle is a huge thing, okay? And especially when you're first starting out, you're going to be sore. You're going to need every advantage you can to help recover and continue the moving process. But the first thing you're talking about was the balance of omega-3s and omega-9s. Ideally, we want to have a 1-to-1 ratio, omega-3s to omega-9s, but because of the Americanized diet right now, I think one of the latest research articles I said is putting most Americans at 25-to-1, omega-9 to omega-3. That is a huge problem.
Yeah. Well, ton of inflammation.
Ton of inflammation. So fish oil, turmeric would be another good one with black pepper for an absorption factor. There's a lot of other anti-inflammatory, from a different root, herbs and whatnot. But like, this is one of those things that I really get kind of irked off with, like the Aleve commercials. It's like, hey, take 2 of these, no more than 2 of these a year, and drink lots of water. Like, and we wonder why we have, we're gonna get rid of your inflammation with this over-the-counter drug, but we're gonna provide longer-lasting inflammation by completely deteriorating your gut.
Right.
It always cracks me up how that works, which sucks because nobody has the information to know that that's not something you should do.
Well, and the good and the bad with supplements too, like you could start taking an omega-3 supplement, and let's say your goal is to lose body fat, decrease body fat. By supplementing with that might be the thing that unlocks the door and allows part of that process to actually take place
more efficiently.
Right, but I'm not going to say it's just the omega-3 supplement.
Oh, well, there's a lot of research to show that, though, especially with pre-diabetic people. And don't quote me on that, because I'd have to find the research on it. But like, I always feel like we were learning something about that, even back in school, where they just ungodly amounts of omega-3, prescriptions just to try to balance that out. But anywho, definitely something you can take into consideration. There's not a day that goes by that I don't take my fish oil.
Right.
I don't consider myself somebody that has a lot of body fat to lose, but I take them for the understanding that I need to, manage inflammation, obviously for heart health purposes, and a lot of other good beneficial things. Move on to the next one, magnesium. This is one that I didn't really think of until, you and I kind of got talking about it, and the more research we've done behind it, it's like, this is something that we need to have for sure. It's literally involved in every single cellular function in the body.
Right.
Like everything. And you got billions of cells. If you're lacking in there, that means like part of your body's just not like, it's kind of like in fog mode, so to speak.
Yeah, magnesium's huge. And we don't, we talked about this in the last one that we're redoing right now, but we don't want to go down a rabbit hole right here, but magnesium, it's not as available in our soil, so then it's no longer going to be as available in the foods that we consume, especially if you're an individual eating, should be a lot of fruits and vegetables.
Sure.
So if we know that we're not receiving as much because it's not there, it's probably something we need to supplement with.
For sure. And that's just scratching the surface of that. Right. There's a lot of cool information that we'd probably bore you on with an entire podcast in and of itself, but it definitely has a lot of other benefits as far as immune function. It helps with enzyme production, helps with different muscle and nerve function. Like, there's a hierarchy to everything in your body, and if you're not getting enough in order to meet the needs of everything, it's only going to go to the ones that are the most important. So you start to lose the ability to function in some of those areas, but as those areas start to increasingly be in a dysfunction, it's when you're going to have problems arise. And sometimes you might not even notice it until you start to supplement, you take it away, and you're like, holy crap, what is going on? Because magnesium is one of the things that we just can't keep on the shelf anymore here.
Right.
So all of our ladies are always on, and we recommend it to all of them. Once again, pending that you got your stuff together as far as your food.
Yeah.
You sleep well, you eat well, and you move often. You do those 3 things. Once again, take some supplements, that's fine.
Right.
They just need to make sense. Next one. This one we don't sell, but I wanted to put it on the list as far as calcium goes. Calcium is one of those things, especially as we age, it becomes super beneficial. Like, we know that, the old dairy ads back in the day was the strong bones and everything, but there's a lot of legitimacy to that. And a lot of the foods that we consume today falls in kind of the same structure as, the whole magnesium talk. There's just not as much of it as it used to be. Right. And that can come from a number of different reasons. But, I laugh because a lot of calcium, most people think of just bones. Like, you're just thinking of bones. And that's true. Like, there's a lot of calcium needed to provide structure and obviously, allow for the rebuilding of bones through osteoblasts and all that fun stuff. But calcium's needed elsewhere. Like, when you exercise and you flex your muscle, in order for it to stop contracting, you need calcium to do that, to bind at one of the receptor sites. Think about people who have like Charlie horses in the middle of the night. Most people are like, oh, you just need to drink water. Or maybe you're calcium deficient. These are all possibilities. Most of the time, though, when you're looking at people who are trying to become a little bit healthy and you're putting excess strains on your body, your joints, and your bones, a calcium supplement's not a bad way to go.
Right.
And most people can find that in a good multivitamin, but sometimes finding a good multivitamin is hard to find these days, And so calcium itself, I've always thought needed to be kind of on the list for people starting. There's also, just like the magnesium, cellular function, nerve function, bone density, obviously. There's some really good research to show how it helps with promoting heart health. Calcium's a pretty good one to throw on there.
Yeah.
Would you agree on that?
For sure.
Okay, this next one James is pretty good at. One, because I already heard him talk about it. But D3.
Yeah. D3, this is, we sell it as a supplement, as do many other, facilities, coaches, whatnot. But D3 is a hormone. It is the precursor to, your body having pregnenolone, or progesterone, sorry. Pregnenolone. I'm getting everything confused. You need D3, you need specific coenzymes, B vitamins, and cholesterol. I mean, those major building blocks right there will help create the pregnenolone and then allow the body to then create, whether it be the pathway to, testosterone, estradiol, and so on and so forth. So when an individual lacks the adequate amount of D3 for, their body, there's probably going to be some hormonal dysfunction at play. It's going to be very difficult to gain muscle. It'll be very difficult to, gain strength, lose body fat, have energy. Like if you have that 2 o'clock lull. Again, we're not saying that lacking D3 is the very reason for that, but it might be.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that just lack D3 anyways, because D3 in its most natural form is sunlight. And, obviously living up here in Indiana, we have long days through the summer. Obviously it's very warm. We don't wear as much clothing. We show more skin. We get more absorption. But as soon as, it depends, could be early October or mid-November, late November, December, and you get that final cold snap, like all the layers are on and they're not coming off until April.
Right.
You know what I mean? So our ability to absorb D3 naturally is extremely limited. And I've always found that funny because D3 has an incredible tie to immune function, immunity, cellular immunity, and your immune response. And you tie that to the days where the daylight is the shortest, during the winter, and it also happens to be quote unquote flu season. Everybody gets sick.
Right.
Okay. And we challenged our members, and we've always covered, we're not doctors, but we're going to try to make sense of something that seems to be very understanding from a very basic level of physiology here. If I know that
we look at it like country boys, like you said earlier.
Seriously, if I look at the fact that, D3 is something that can help my immunity, I know I need a strong immunity to fight off, foreign bacteria and invaders. Why don't I supplement with D3 at an increased rate during the winter? And then we kind of kept track. Who all got the flu? Very little people who were supplementing with D3 got the flu. Now, once again, I'm not a doctor, draw your own conclusions, but that's just how we looked at it.
Individuals, they should, hopefully, we challenge our members to think this way. They should be their own test subject. Seasonal depression, that's a real thing.
Sure.
We're not taking anything away from it. But if you're willing to potentially take on an elevated amount of D3 in those winter months, let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I know personally in here of individuals who have been like, yeah, I felt totally different. I didn't have that issue last year or whatever. Yeah,
be your own health advocate for sure. So D3 is definitely something I'd recommend to people trying to get back into the health realm of things. And then whey protein.
Right.
Okay. And I usually catch a lot of flack with the whey protein because I have a lot of vegan people or vegetarians that would rather stay away from the animal product. I get it. Vegan protein, the pea protein powders and stuff like that. They obviously have their place, and they can be very beneficial for you. Go ahead and just fulfill that into this category if you'd like. I'll have another argument for that when we get to the performance side of things, but that's okay. Most of the time you're looking for something that's going to help with protein synthesis. So when you start exercising, you're doing one of those first three things that you need to be doing if you're going to be looking at supplements, being the move often. You need to allow your body to have the opportunity to heal via the building blocks needed for rebuilding proteins in your muscles, okay? But just like anything else in the body, protein's needed elsewhere, not just your muscles. Okay, it's needed in rebuilding cellular walls. It's needed in helping with certain bowel health things. There's a lot of different things that are needed with this one building block.
Right.
But most people just think of it as muscle building. It's not always the case. But if you lack getting enough protein, that hierarchical play comes in, and not everything is going to get fulfilled the way you'd want it to. So having a protein supplement can be beneficial. And I'm a big fan of whey protein. I think it just seems a little bit better. Most people who have, and this is just my experience, most people that have issues with whey proteins and they have like digestive issues or whatnot, had a digestive issue beforehand, and the whey protein just kind of exacerbated it.
Right.
In which case, I would be trying to figure out what the root cause of that is, because otherwise we're just putting a Band-Aid on a problem.
Right.
You could take your pea protein, but if it goes away and you still have an underlying issue that doesn't get brought out by anything, the issue didn't go away. It's still there. We got to figure out what it is.
Right.
So whey protein is definitely one that I would consider. Somewhere from 20 to 25 grams a serving with water, not with milk and avocados and a bunch of high dense calorie stuff. I'm not looking at it as a meal replacement. I'm looking at it as a supplement.
Right.
A supplement to a lacking macronutrient protein that I have in my diet.
Sure.
Because most people, especially females, very under eaters of protein.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah, that's it's the reason they're not probably seeing results.
For sure. Move on to the next one for health. Greens. Hit it.
Greens are just tremendously undervalued, underused, I would say, in our Americanized diet. We definitely need them.
It's borderline funny. It's not funny. It's not funny.
For sure. And this is coming from a guy, I don't always love vegetables. My wife's an amazing cook. She cooks vegetables in a way that our family will eat them, but I wasn't always a good vegetable eater growing up. I understand their micronutrient value, so I eat them because for health purposes. Anyway, greens they molecularly mimic chlorophyll hemoglobin in the body. So blood and then chlorophyll in greens. Okay, those things help detox, oxygenate your blood profile, and anyone that wants to have any kind of health benefit whatsoever, they need to include more greens in their diet.
You want that oxygen in there.
Yeah.
So the greens itself is a cruciferous vegetable or vegetables that has been essentially pulverized.
We're not talking just spinach.
No, not at all. I can't even read some of the ones, but there's a lot of root vegetables. There's a lot of leafy greens. Like all of the nutrients, and you mentioned micronutrients, so like you're talking vitamins and minerals and stuff like that, can come from a cruciferous vegetable. Okay, I don't care who you are and what you do with your life or what you're trying to do. You should be consuming something that has a dense micronutrient value to it. I love talking macronutrients and figuring out that puzzle with people, but you really want to get tricky and you really want to get skilled at knowing your body, start calculating micronutrients. That's when things can get real fun.
Right.
Maybe one day I'll offer that to some of our members, but that's in depth. Okay?
Speaking of, while we're on this, if you want a multivitamin, have a beet, blend it up, like put it in a juice or whatever every single day. That has more micronutrients in it than any other food you can consume.
I hate beets, but you know what? I'm not going to disagree because I know it. And that's the same thing as like you have the power greens and the beet, or the red juice. They call it red juice, green juice. Who makes that?
It starts with a K.
I can't remember. But anyways, so like, it's that exact same thing. Like, but it goes back down to the fact that the most micronutrients that you get came from the ground and from the soil profile and all that fun stuff. Another rabbit hole for another day. But these are things to consider because, in this category, we're talking about how can I get my body back to health? How can I get kickstarted back into this? Or maybe you're just maintaining. Maybe you're out of a strength cycle or out of a performance realm. You're in your off season, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to maintain my health here. These are things to consider as far as supplementation goes. But once again, back to the big three. You got to move well, you got to sleep well, and you got to move often, eat well, sleep well. Sorry, got them out of order. But these are things you have to consider because I used to be the guy back in college. not too proud to tell you how much I probably spent on supplements. BSN Nutrition got a pretty nice check for me pretty often. Dude, like, even after getting, I used to take a lot of those mass gainers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just trying to bulk up for football.
The tub is as big as this flag.
And it's got 15 servings in it.
Yeah.
So, like, I been around the supplement. It took me a long time to understand the supplement industry, obviously, and I don't have it all understood, like, by far. I have a long way to go. But as far as the things that we recommend to take, like, these are not the things that you commonly see in the supplement world. You're looking for things that have very shiny labels and false promises, and it's highlighting somebody who's probably never taken the product. And we'll talk about some things to obviously avoid in the supplement industry as far as ingredients goes and things to look at. But a lot of things that we just covered here in this list are things that everybody should be taking.
Right.
And as far as I know, I don't know of any reason why you shouldn't be, regardless of age, sex, what you're doing with your life, what you're trying to do, what your goal is. These are all things that could be used to better pursue health.
Right.
Now, if we want to start talking about performance realm, take everything we just covered, every supplement that we just talked about, throw it into the list, because I do think that all of them have a place in performance. Because if you're trying to perform, you're trying to recover better than the other person. Like, that's how I look at performance. Because if you can recover better, there's a good chance that next time you perform, you have the edge.
Yeah.
And so all these things I think can be super beneficial. But there are some other ones that I think from a pure performance standpoint could be very beneficial. Okay. One of them is going to be, and it's the only one that I would really say has to be added to the list, is with the whey protein is also casein protein. So we have whey and casein protein, two different protein structures. Benefit for the exact same purpose, really, as far as protein synthesis and recovery and all that fun stuff. Whey protein isolate is, and when you see this, everybody sees the word isolate on there. So if you think of any real dairy product, it is, the protein that is from that is is made up of casein and whey protein. Like, of those two, that makes up the 100% protein structure in the animal protein. The whey protein is very quickly absorbed in the body versus the casein protein. So there are two different time structures that most people would think about consuming casein protein. Whey protein is one of those things that, after your workout can be super beneficial, can be absorbed very rapidly. The casein proteins is one of those things that later throughout the day, it's a little bit longer in the system. It helps keep you satiated. You're not necessarily just dying. Think of cottage cheese.
Right.
Nobody eats cottage cheese and it's like, oh God, I gotta have more cottage cheese like an hour later, right? It's very slow digesting. We were always told in high school to eat it before you go to bed, and we could never figure out why.
Yeah.
That was why. Okay, a bunch of fat and slow digesting protein, man. It filled you up, made you feel good. So I really think you have to consider having both of those protein sources in the performance window, or in the performance list here we have. I know specifically for me and a lot of my training when I was younger, for a performance standpoint, casein wasn't really in my radar. I think it's just because I didn't know enough about it. But I think it could be a really good tool for people to know, at least from a food standpoint. Like, if you're going to be eating and, especially gaining weight and trying to get through 2-a-days, take 2-a-days, for example.
Sure.
Wreaks havoc on your body. And I'm talking football here, but you could apply any sport, really. 2-a-days are going to put such a stress on your body that you need any advantage you can to recover from it. So if I'm doing everything I can while I'm awake, might as well do everything I can while I'm asleep, too.
Yeah. The body's the most anabolic at rest.
For sure.
So if we can give it something that is going to help it recover better, performance, for sure.
Yeah, and that's, there's another topic that we're planning on getting on soon, as far as food timing and anabolic windows and all that fun stuff, because everybody has one.
Yeah.
Everybody just hears anabolic and they're like, oh, you're talking about meathead steroid guys. It's not quite the same at all, but we'll learn you on that later. Creatine. That's a big
beautiful
one.
product.
Beautiful, yeah. So of this list that we're talking about, in these three that we're going to get to, there's only 3 of them on in this list for us. And they're probably going to be not the ones that you're hoping for. But these 3 products that we're talking about, or these 3 supplements we're talking about, are the most clinically researched to show support for enhanced performance and recovery. And it was sad for me because that made me realize that a couple of the things that I take aren't necessarily not placebo, but they're not shown.
Not as validated.
Correct. That's what I was looking for. But creatine is an interesting one. You take creatine, don't you?
I've taken creatine since I was probably 19.
Oh, yep. Any kidney problems?
No.
Yeah. So we're gonna clear that one up really quick. So the biggest misconception when it comes to creatine, and especially, most people tell you that, oh, you shouldn't take creatine because it's bad for your kidneys, right? So, and I have to look this back up, but at some point back in, it wasn't terribly long ago, I want to say it was within the last decade, maybe a little longer, but there were some soccer players from up north, I want to say it was Wisconsin, doing 2-a-day style training, were loading up on creatine. Come to find out that they had I can't even remember what the number was, but some very, very, very large number or amount of creatine in their system. And they were dehydrated from 2 days, and their kidneys essentially malfunctioned, they shut down, and they did die.
Right.
And that raised a whole lot of hell as far as, what the body could do or couldn't do with creatine. So most people think that the kidneys can really handle it at a very certain load and what it can be used for. But the reality is that if you are hydrated, okay, your kidneys can 100% handle 5 grams, that'd be a lot, 5 grams of creatine monohydrate at a time. Now, most people will argue before or higher and lower than that, and that's fine, that's okay, but 5 grams is what has been clinically shown to be the most effective.
Now, there's a safe amount for the body to take. If you take 20 to 30 grams, that's
a little much.
There's obviously going to be some adverse effect from that.
Right. And the same study shows true for male and female people. The creatine, what it does for you, we go back to the first energy system that we talked about 2 podcasts ago, or a couple podcasts ago. Your body, for quick energy and recovery, needs creatine in order to help replenish ATP stores. This is, the people who throw a baseball, do a standing jump, or do really quick work, power work, under 10 seconds, just high intensity, real quick, 10 seconds. That's your creatine system, okay? And creatine can help with prolonging that system before it starts to fatigue. Can also help with recovering that system a little bit quicker in between sets.
Yeah.
Helps you recover a little bit better throughout the day. If you're lifting, most of us lift in here in order to gain an edge competitively when you're talking about training. If you're in training, creatine should be in your program. You know what I mean? If you're in a sports performance world, it really should. I don't think that there's really any reason otherwise, unless there are some kind of medical, underlying conditions here. So creatine is definitely one of those things that I think has to be on this list for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. Now, I want to say that the other misconception is creatine loading. Do you load?
No.
So creatine loading, most people, and there's some, I don't know how verified the research is, but there's some people that think that you should load into the creatine every 3 months. You should do it and then cycle off of it and deload from creatine and then go back onto it. And I haven't seen anything that really validates that.
There's at the very beginning, the research of solely creatine monohydrate, it would, and this is a misconception and honestly a myth for a lot of women that creatine's going to make me bloated and it's going to make me,
hold body water.
Right. You may hold a little bit, you may retain a little bit of water, but eventually that's because you're bringing something on new in an elevated dose to the body. That will diminish in time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just if you're looking for any kind of better output and endurance with lifting weights, it has to be in your arsenal. Yeah,
for sure. And creatine's found naturally in red meat. Yeah. So it's not like it's this foreign synthetic product that you're just throwing in because it's not like a steroid.
It wasn't made in Wuhan.
No. No, it was not. But it is in a lot of the food that we consume. However, most of that food that we consume now is not of very pure nature, so we're not getting as much of it. All right. If your kid is solely eating the school lunches provided by the school and expecting to get strong, he better be getting a lot of corn and potatoes when he's at home, because it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
Creatine's definitely a great source. And you know, I think that, you know, and I have been asked what's the youngest age you should give somebody creatine. I think this, and it's probably worth talking about, I think it varies a little bit. And I honestly think it varies on how healthy the kid is.
Yeah.
I really do.
I think it depends on the health of the parents and the maturity of the parents before you even consider the kid.
Well, I think that should be the case before you consider supplementation, because otherwise your dad's going to go buy you a big old thing and it'll explode at 13. Be like, have at it, son.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm fine here. Anyways, yes, I think it does depend on the health of the kid, the maturity of the kid, and the parents, because there has to be, you just have to understand what the product does before you start taking it, because then you can, you know, it's like, oh, if 1 scoop's good, 2 scoops must be better, you know? Like, that's not how this thing works, okay? And it's something that has to have a little bit of understanding behind it, you know, a little bit of, you have to be strict with your ability to use it, you know, when to use it, when not to use it, and so forth. So I don't want to put a number on it, but you definitely can handle it as a teenager, I believe, you know, as long as you're healthy. But, you know, I see a lot of very, very, very unhealthy 15-year-olds that do nothing but smash energy drinks, you know, and then go play football. Like, you know, we go back to the general understanding of why this product is misunderstood. It was because not way back when, but, you know, that immediate, you know, black eye on the product with the soccer players dying, you know, they were completely dehydrated, okay? If your kid is unhealthy, eats a lot of processed food, you know, smashes energy drinks, like, there's a great chance the kid's dehydrated. Like, and you're going to load him up with 5 to 10 grams of creatine.
Yeah.
Probably not a great situation. Is he going to be able to handle it for a while? Maybe. Are you going to see any benefit from this? Absolutely not.
No.
Like, go back to the 3 things. It still applies with kids, okay? They got to sleep. They got to move often. They got to eat well.
Yeah.
If they don't do that, don't waste your time on this product.
For sure.
Okay? But for those of you that are looking for a competitive edge and have all those other things taken care of, yeah, I think it could be beneficial.
In especially high school sports, junior high, whatever, I think it's NSF. That's the label.
The one that checks.
Yeah. So they're, you know, some kids their schools test for specific things. If you're going to take a product, you want to make sure it's something that is qualified and you are able to, you know,
legally
have in your system.
Yeah. There's and most people, if they follow up with this podcast, are asking, well, where should you go get, you know, different brands or whatnot. I have the things that I like. I know why I like them. They resonate with me. But yes, you can find and you can look up a lot of those different blue check mark deals, as far as, you know, a lot of IHSA, and I know the NCAA, they all have a specific list of supplements that they allow.
Right.
And if you were ever tested for them and you know, you showed up for a substance that was not on the list, like, you would be disqualified.
For sure.
You know, for some sports, your team would be disqualified.
Yeah, we don't want individuals to listen to this and be like, well, Colton and James, they said to just start pounding X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, no, there's a reason there's only 3 supplements on here.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're not going to test positive with anything on these 3. So already thought through that one. So we'll just go into our third one here. So we talked about whey protein and casein protein. We just talked about creatine. The third one for athletic performance is caffeine. Now, there are some, yes, and James just tipped his glass there because he's getting ready to, or you're just trying to, you already worked out, you're just trying to stay awake, I guess.
You know, caffeine helps me. Honestly, I don't think I was ever diagnosed with ADHD, and I don't know how much I really believe in that label, but I do know that if I need to really focus on something, whether it be this or a lot of computer work, caffeine definitely helps. So I actually don't take a lot of pre-workout before I lift anymore.
Yeah.
I use it for this.
Yeah, so, and it's perfect that you said that, because that's why most people are like, you mean you don't have pre-workout on your list of things? Well, no, I don't.
Right.
You know, pre-workout has a lot of different things in there that you should be consuming anyways. You know, they should have the B vitamins. It should have niacin from the meat you consume. It should have all those different things that are already in your diet, okay? But usually the most important ingredient in pre-workout that people like and they see benefit from is caffeine, usually. But this is the most abused drug in America. It's caffeine. But mind you, we're putting this in the list for performance categories, not trying to stay awake through your 9 to 5 category. Okay. And it's important to differentiate that. Okay. You can easily abuse caffeine just by chugging 3 pots of coffee a day because I quote unquote need it for my sanity, or you use X milligrams of caffeine for getting you through a hard workout or whatnot. Okay.
It's very unfortunate. So many individuals just have no idea what it feels like to have optimal health and to just realistically not even need caffeine, through the course of a workday or whatever.
There's there's people that I work with that are like, I need to lose body fat, I need to do this, I need to hit this number, this and that, and they finally get through a day where their circadian rhythm works really well.
Right.
They wake up with the sun, they eat, they move well, they start to get tired in the evening and they go to sleep, and they're like, I didn't crash in the middle of the day. I wasn't moody. I didn't have any of those things happen. And I'm like, still wanting to lose all that body fat? And they're like, no, I'm good. If I can keep this, I'll be happy. And I'm like, yeah. Nobody really understands what optimal health feels like. So I can't agree with you more on that. But caffeine.
If we could sell that in a supplement, we'd be on it.
I'd be figured. Yeah, you start working on that. Call up Bill Gates. He'll help you out. So we are, caffeine. It's one of those things that, and especially nowadays, and, going off of, we were talking about creatine for kids, this is one that I would totally avoid just because it's so hard to regulate with kids. And it's not something that you should necessarily drive home an addiction to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think we responsibly understand what caffeine is and we respect what it does. I don't, believe that we abuse it. Okay. I consume caffeine once a day, twice a day if I'm working out. Mm-hmm. I used to drink a lot of coffee.
Right.
A lot. Pots of coffee. I drink one 16-ounce turbos of coffee every morning. That's it. For those of you that have a Keurig at home, it's the 12-ounce and the 4-ounce put together. So it's watered down a little bit. I don't get two cups. So I drink one thing of coffee, and then I'll have pre-workout if I'm going to work out. But that's it. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think a lot of people, caffeine can come in the form of a lot of different things.
Right.
It can be coffee, it can be tea, but it can be a simple caffeine pill. It could be obviously pre-workout. It can be, throw in a bunch of other crap.
What was the stack? It had ephedrine in it. It wasn't caffeine,
my gosh.
Right?
Yeah. Stack F3D, stack.
It was ephedrine, aspirin, and something else. You know what I'm talking about?
Right. Elephant tranquilizer.
Anyway. Like stimulants can definitely help you reach any kind of performance goal, but if you abuse them, there's going to be a long-term consequence for sure.
Yes, and we find that's one of the hardest things to navigate is getting through those issues where it's like I've never noticed that this one thing that I do that has become such a habit is the thing that has taken me off the path of being able to lose body fat or whatnot. But keep in mind, and don't confuse this, we are still talking about the performance aspect of things. I think a good, strong cup of coffee can be good, if not better, than most pre-workouts out there.
Definitely.
I really do, especially if you're somebody who works out in the morning. I don't think caffeine is beneficial to anybody who trains in the evening. I really don't. If you are dragging at the end of a day, like say you're going to work out at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, whatnot, and you're dragging before then, caffeine's not going to fix your root problem that you got going on. It's one of the things that you need to figure out. Why in the hell am I tired at 4 o'clock?
Right.
Because it's not bedtime.
Especially if the sun's still out.
Exactly. So fixing that issue would be a huge help for you. If you're somebody who's getting up before the sun rises and you're trying to get going, I think caffeine can be super helpful, and I think there's nothing better than a cup of coffee. Really don't, for the caffeine purposes. But moving past that a little bit, we got to kind of talk about pre-workout, kind of. I don't have it on the list as a thing that you need to be consuming. Really don't. Mainly because there's just a lot of stuff in pre-workout that can be kind of sketchy trying to look at. Now, James is laughing because he's like the pre-workout connoisseur of the century and probably tried.
I've tried about every pre-workout.
Tried a bunch of them. But there's a lot of things in pre-workout that it's helpful for you to know to avoid. And they're not necessarily ingredients, so to speak. They're just, there's fillers, and there are, preservation things in there. What's the preservatives? There's a lot of gunk in there that is going to eventually take away from your overall health. And if you do it long enough, you can take away from your overall health using something that's supposed to help you perform. Your performance will have adverse results.
Right. I think a person just needs to have a level of maturity in which they apply the pre-workout. I definitely think a pre-workout supplement is a necessary thing for an individual wanting to perform or to compete, because if your only time to work out, let's say at 5 or 6 a.m. and your coach tells you need to get in 6 workouts throughout the course of the week to stay on par with whatever goal, and you got 4.5 hours of sleep the night before, we both know that that's not necessarily a healthy thing. But if you're going to compete, you're still going to get in and do that workout.
Yeah. If you're going to compete.
Right.
Compete. Know that. If you're going to compete, if you're trying to be healthy and you're trying to maintain, you're trying to actively just party, as we like to call it. Like, you want to come in here and party, like, pre-workout's probably not what you need.
Yeah, it's just wasting money.
Another thing that I tell people to look out for, or you'll see on most pre-workouts, something called proprietary blends. So the FDA kind of took over the ability to oversee the supplement industry.
Which is probably a good thing.
Which is, well, maybe, depending on who you are. But they kind of essentially said, look, if you make claims on a product, you have to tell us what the claims are. We have to regulate that claim. We have to kind of make sure. But they also kind of left them able to protect their recipe, quote unquote, by labeling something as proprietary. Just meaning, like, I don't have to tell you exactly what it is, but just know that it works. And that way you don't get the ratio and steal my product. It's kind of like patent pending for ingredients. And it can get sketchy, because a lot of the ones that get broken down, they're like, what the hell is this? Like, this isn't even, meant to be in this product, or it's not accurately labeled outside of it and whatnot. And, this goes back to, really understanding the supplement, not just the product that you're buying, but the company who's making it.
Right.
I always tell people to do research on the company. Don't do research on the product.
Definitely.
It's always a much better and much safer. You get a more broad scope of what this company does. And if something seems a little fishy, it's because it is. Okay. And we have plenty of lists of them.
Well, and just even like looking at the demographic of the individuals purchasing it, like, I'm just being real. If you're buying a supplement and it's like, Rage whatever, and it's got a picture of, guys lifting 10,000 pounds on certain things, and they are
chains hanging around the neck,
and you're like, if that's not what you want, it's probably not the kind of product you're looking for.
Right. Yeah. Labeling for almost anything in the health world, quote unquote, is pretty ridiculous. Most of the times they use a random figure or picture with somebody who's probably never done or taken that thing that they're trying to sell, and it's like,
right.
It's an impulse buy thing. It's like, oh, that person looks awesome, I want to do that. Never mind the fact that your body type is not hers, your genetics aren't hers, you don't work out the way she does, and your stress level is not like hers. Like, variables that you should consider, so that way you don't waste your money.
Yeah, that's a great point. I have this conversation all the time, especially with newer individuals. They'll look at transformation pictures or whatever, and they're like, well, how long did that take? 4 years. Well, how long did it take him to get to that? 3.5 years. And it's because it's not that we can't see results in the short term. Realistically, we have to build the ability to gain the trust, and they have to do the things necessary. And usually that's getting rid of all the quick fixes, supplements and whatever else. So,
yep. And then you have that one person on there. It's like, how long did it take him? 6 weeks. I want to do what he did. Nah, you can't do what he did.
Yeah.
He's like, why? I'll list this long, but just know that that's why it's individualized.
Right.
So anyways, the supplement industry gets kind of tricky, and I know we're not telling you to go try a specific product because we think it is just freaking awesome. But a lot of the things that we brought up on this list are things that we find and we put a lot of weight into for people who are obviously trying to achieve health or have a performance mindset. And mind you, our demographic is more around the health, but we do have a handful of people. We have a nationally ranked Olympic weightlifter here. We have a couple of them actually. We have a bunch of kids that are in a lot of different sports around here that are statewide ranked as sophomore or freshmen and sophomores. So we have a lot of athletes that we work with, and we are trying to provide this kind of advice to them as well. But the main understanding is that the health aspect really needs to come first.
Right.
You still need to eat well, sleep well, and move often. And then if you are doing those things, the supplement industry can be something that helps you. But if you're bypassing those first 3 things that I talked about, and you're looking at the promises made by a label that tells you, I lost 10 pounds in the first week, like, it's not going to be sustainable. And I promise you, sustainability will be something that you enjoy a lot more than just seeing the scale go down at a rapid pace.
Yeah.
And you'll also not like spending so much on toilet paper.
Yeah. What the free supplement? Sleep.
Oh, we didn't even talk about that one. Yes, performance and health. Yes, the most free supplement that is researched, is proven, and yet nobody wants to take it. Sleep.
Yeah. If you, you'll hear us say this over and over and over, but any goal you have, if you're not willing to sleep more probably than what you are currently, you're not gonna. You won't get there.
That's the thing is, you have to be willing, maybe not just to sleep more, but you have to be willing to allot the time to sleep more.
Yeah.
Like if you aren't winding down after dinner and it's 11:30 and you're just chilling watching TV, like you're doing that to yourself.
Right.
You could be actively trying to wind down to get yourself to sleep. Like you didn't allot for your body to get 8 hours of sleep. Mm-hmm. That is on you. I don't care what you tell me. Like you have to do the things to actively seek out going to sleep. But a lot of people don't want to do that.
No.
So, anyways, sleep, add that to the list. Add it to both lists because they're super, super, super important. But we are going to go ahead and wrap that up. I don't know what's going on outside, but it sounds loud.
Hopefully UPS drops some stuff off.
Anyways, yeah. So, next week or the next podcast we'll have up, we're actually going to go ahead and introduce the 38 special where we talk about some member application. And most people are wanting to know more about that. Like, how did you take a specific individual, assess what was going on with them, and devise a plan for them to get to what they wanted? We're going to talk about it a little bit, and it'll be a pretty cool experience for you guys. And not to say that it's going to translate perfectly over to your life, but maybe it'll create a different way of thinking about your problem that you have, or where you're trying to go, or how you're trying to get there. That's probably the main goal of the 38 special episodes. So we'll bring you the first one here next week. Until then, got anything you want to add on the supplement talk?
No.
Okay, you can still reach us at any time, silverbulletpodcast@gmail.com, in case you guys want to send us questions or provide feedback, anything. Obviously, go ahead and like and subscribe on YouTube, all of our social media platforms. You can follow me on social media platforms. You can look me up on Facebook and Instagram. You won't find him on Instagram. You can find him on Facebook. He might accept your friend request, probably not, but you can interact with me for sure. Or also follow our gym here in Greensburg, Reclaim. Definitely something you want to keep track of as far as when we're talking about how we work with our clients and our demographic and obviously our gym. Here's where you want to be, and we are on Facebook. So until next time, guys, this is the Silver Bullet Podcast.